Hello, and welcome to the Funky Fossil YouTube channel. My name's Sarah Gray, and thank you very much for tuning in to see the project that I've got to share with you today. I'll be using all kind of Funky Fossil products, and I want to make a Christmas card today, which is going to use some stamping, uses some die cutting, some patterned papers, and also have a little bit of a play with the new Tim Holtz distress watercolour pencils, which I've just got and thought I'd share with you, and just really kind of give you some ideas of techniques and ways of maybe using your die cuts a bit differently to that you've done before. The die that I'm particularly going to focus on in my make today is our Twiggy Wreath die, and we've only got a handful of these left in stock at funkyfossil.co.uk. And I have reduced the price of them from $15.99 down to $9.99. So if you like this project and can see the versatility of this wreath die, then certainly you'll need to be quick if you want to grab the last of those that we've got in store. I'm also going to use our beautiful White Magic paper pad, which I've got here the 8x8 version, but we also have a 6x6 in these papers as well. And these are perfect for those kind of rustic Nordic type Christmas cards or wintry cards. Really, it's got some nice neutrals, some crafts, some deep reds and wintry shades. So this is a beautiful paper pad to create with, and I've been using it a lot recently. So I'm going to be using this paper pad in the project. And the other thing that I was going to use to complete the card is our Pretty Poinsettias stamp set by Charlotte Blackwood, which has got some beautiful images in, and they go really lovely, really lovely with the papers. But let's start first and foremost with the die cut, because what I want to do is I've already die cut the Twiggy Wreath twice, once out of a kind of, I describe it as kind of a grey brown, I think it's more grey, card, you can see there. And then I've also die cut it out of a piece of the papers from the White Magic paper pad. What I've done, because of course here it just looks completely white, is I've selected a piece of the papers and adhered some double-sided adhesive onto the paper before I put it through the die cutting machine, so that when I lift this paper covering off the die cut, we'll be able to add some glitter and really kind of get some kind of nice wintry shimmer on the die. Now this will effectively cover most of the papers, so you could do this on a piece of plain white paper as well if you wanted to. I thought I'd use a paper from the pad because if there are any little spots of it that still show through after we've added our glitter, it at least will have some complementary colours in it that will work with the rest of the card. So it's totally a matter of choice, but this double-sided adhesive is going to cover the whole of our die with sticky surface. So this is quite a delicate die, so you can see I'm just pulling away the adhesive sheet here, but just take your time in doing this so you don't tear the image. And it's one of those things that as you get a bit of traction, it'll come off fairly easily. Yeah, and I'll probably make it look a lot more complicated or difficult to do than it is, because I'm trying to avoid putting my head into shot. You can see how easily that's just coming away. Now you could simply die cut the wreath from the patterned paper and then just go around and add spots of glue and highlight with glitters if you didn't want to create a completely glittered image. And so it's another look that you could get with a die like this. But I was quite interested to see how this would look with a full scale kind of glitter coating. So you can see I have used one of the White Magic papers here, but I don't expect much of this to show through. you will want to cover everything because of course it's all got adhesive on it, so anything that gets left uncovered will still have a bit of tackiness to it, which you won't necessarily want on the front of your card. Now I've got some fine glitters here, and I've chosen some colours, some silver, some blue and some iron grey. This is just a set of glitters that I got off Amazon, and I think this one's going to be new because I'm fairly sure I haven't used this colour yet. So see, it's got a bit of a protective seal on the top. I think all three of them will do actually. So let's just get those uncapped before we begin. I'm going to sprinkle these glitters over the sticky surface. You could do it all in the one colour. You could do it all in a clear glitter as well, which would be fantastic if you wanted to keep the paper or whatever colour you've got of the die cut visible, but still have lots of shimmer. Lots of ways of doing this. So this is the iron grey, and then we've got a deep blue as well, which I'll probably use fairly sparingly, but I thought it would be nice as a cool tone on our wreath. Just being impatient and tearing into my pots of glitter. Should have really done that before we started off camera, but we've got there in the end. So let's start by adding some silver, some of the silver. And I've just these glitters actually came with a little spoon to kind of take them out, so you've got that available to you, but otherwise just use the end of a lolly stick or just something that's going to help you kind of put the colour down in a relatively controlled way. At this point you don't want to shake and cover the whole image with the one glitter colour, because of course you'll then remove the tackiness from the wreath and not be able to add different colours. So I'm just going to flip the wreath over. Well, most of it will have fallen through. And let's just, in fact, I'm going to leave this glitter on here, so I'm going to end up with a bit of a glitter mix, but you could effectively tip it back into the pot and keep your glitters from contaminating each other. This is the dark grey. I'm going with a kind of white wood background for this card, so I'm kind of going with cool tones in the glitters, but again, use what you have. I'm not a regular glitter user, so this is a bit of an experiment for me, but if you don't use glitters at Christmas time, then when else in the year are you going to use them? I'm just putting a bit of the blue on, I'm not wanting to put too much of that blue in. Just looking for where on the wreath I've not already got some coverage. And then what I'll do to finish off, just to ensure really that all of the tackiness has been absorbed by that glitter, is go in with a final covering of silver, because that will be the I suppose the most neutral of the colours that I've got here on my wreath. So I'm going to just put this to one side, and I will decant it into a little pot I've got for little kind of shaken mixes of glitter, just so that if I'm just going to throw lots of glitter down in this final coat, I can return that to the pot. So you can see here now I'm literally coating the entire wreath with some silver. And I absolutely love this wreath die. We bought it out in the spring. The idea of kind of, you know, spring wreaths and nests and that kind of imagery, but actually it's a perfect design for wintry cards too. That's why I wanted to use it with these colours and share it in a different, in a different context. I've got a glitter avalanche there. You see it all on camera. I'm just going to give it a quick wipe off so I don't cover everything from here on in the glitter. So we've got our wreath covered in yummy colours, and all I'm going to do is put a piece of plain white paper over the top so that I can burnish that glitter into the adhesive and make sure we're not going to have lots of glitter shedding later. It just gives me a sense as well of if there are any areas that haven't been covered, but I think that's pretty well covered there, and it's beautiful shades of blues and silvers. But equally, the pattern paper behind it, although it was a subtle paper, will be adding some further interest behind that glitter, and that's now kind of fairly securely down. So let me show you this is again from the White Magic paper pad, this paper that I've already got adhered to the front of a card blank. So this is why I was picking those kind of blues and greyish tones. But I think in terms of giving the wreath even more impact, let's see how it looks with a layer of the kind of grey underneath it. Oops, a daisy. Probably gives it a bit more definition, doesn't it? I like that. So what I want to do now to add a bit of kind of a pop of contrast to the card is use the poinsettias from our Pretty Poinsettia stamp set that I showed you at the beginning of the video. I just want to kind of add that in the corner. And let me just show you how I coloured it, because I used the new Distress watercolour pencils to give that flower its colour. And I'm just going to stamp it with some VersaFine, black VersaFine, which of course is going to is not a water reactive ink, so it won't move when we add watercolour to it. I'm just going to stamp one down, and I won't show you the whole of the watercolouring, but I'm sure lots of you will have seen the new watercolour pencils from Tim Holtz, so I thought you might be interested to see them in action. So I've got a couple of, I bought all of the 3 sets that were released, so I have taken pencils out from the tins that I think will work with this image. So I can't unfortunately tell you which tin each of them belong to, but we'll start with the Candied Apple. So these are a woodless watercolour pencil, so it's all pigment, and then it's kind of a sticker around the core of the pencil here, which you can sharpen off or tear off. It's actually in little tabs, so I think you can tear it off as well if you want to. And what I've been finding that I'm doing in terms of applying colour to stamped images is I've been doing just a little bit of rough colouring. As you can see how rough it is. I'm not looking at here at any fine shading. This is just colour that I can then blend out. And I do like these pencils because they obviously coordinate with the Distress ink palette, which I have most of and really enjoy using. They have a nice blend out. They seem to be move nicely with water, but equally, they, you know, if you already have watercolor pencils and are happy with the range of colors that you have with that, then you can continue getting the kind of effects that you want to with those. And equally, I often, and I still will, I think, put some ink, some distress ink down on my craft mat, my glass mat, and pick that up to watercolor. So if I was looking to color a big surface area, I probably would still pick that up with a paintbrush off the mat with one of the inks, just to make that process quicker. But this is quite a convenient way of applying colour to smaller areas, where sometimes if you smush the ink out onto the mat, you then feel you've got lots left over that you're not actually using. I've got a water brush here. I typically, when I'm at home, certainly, still just dip that into water rather than kind of squeezing the barrel, because I feel I've got a bit more control. But again, we've all got our own techniques for doing these kind of things. And you can see here that to get a first layer of colour down, they're moving out nicely. This is watercolour cardstock, by the way, that I'm using, but they move out nicely. And they certainly respond to the water well. Don't feel I get lots of kind of residual pencil marks from where I put the original colour down. You can take your time in doing this. It's one of the joys of watercolouring. What I then typically do is, when I've got that initial colour down and I'm happy with that first coat, I'm finding that quite often I'm wetting my brush and then taking the brush actually to the pencil itself, so that I can go back in and add elements of colour where I want to. And that is just, again, it's personal choice. I could go back in directly to the cardstock with the pencil itself, but I'm finding, of course, if I've already got, now my cardstock is damp from the first layer, I just find that the pencil can kind of maybe be a little bit too intense, or I have a bit less control than I do by just going in, picking up the bits that I want. You can see there how intense and rich that colour is, just coming straight off the pencil itself. So you could take lots of time building up your colours and enjoying the process of watercolouring. I certainly can see myself using these watercolour pencils a lot, because they will ensure that I have that match with an inky background. But I do have other watercolour pencils too, and whilst the quality of these are good, I wouldn't say they're necessarily better than any of the watercolour pencils. Some of the other watercolour pencils I have, I just get the benefit of the distress palette. So I could go on building up some shading and depth here, but I already have an image coloured in. I just thought you might want to have a quick peek at the distress pencils. And say I have coloured in this poinsettia with the candied apple. I did a little bit of shading, a little bit more depth with the fired brick, which is a kind of slightly richer, earthier red. I went into the centre with a bit of black soot and walnut stain, and then the leaves I coloured with a combination of peeled paint and rustic wilderness. So if you have all those colours and inks, you could of course have coloured, and if you were doing a batch colouring and you wanted to put all the inks out, then that might be a quick way of getting the colour onto the flowers. But I've stamped that, cut it out, as you can see, put that to one side, and I think that pop of red will work nicely on our card against those kind of silvery blues. The other element that I've brought into the card, which will bring that contrast in colour, is one of our festive word dies. This one says Noel, And all I've done here is cut it several times, I think 4 times, out of a piece of red card, which has got some slight pearlescence to it. So that in the opposite corner will balance out our poinsettia. So we'll have a quick stick down and this card will be made. Again, totally personal choice. You could have just gone with a single wreath rather than layering it up as I am here. I just think having the 2 and 1 in the kind of matte contrasting colour will add a bit more depth to the wreath. And as I said at the beginning of the video, I only have a handful of these left, and I have reduced them from the $15.99 down to $9.99. So if this is something you think you could see yourself using with glitter or with some other techniques, definitely want to get hold of before it's gone. I didn't cover everything with glue there. I'm not too worried about having the whole thing stuck down with the wreath. It's quite nice if some of the little branches kind of still have got a bit of movement to them. I'm just using a fine tip applicator just to dot the adhesive around on the wreath. Again, could have cut this out on the other side too with the double-sided adhesive. Although with fine die cuts like this, just be aware that sometimes if you do, say for example, if I'd used a slightly thicker cardstock and put the double-sided adhesive sheet on and then put it through the die cutting machine, sometimes it just creates another further challenge for your die cutting machine. You might need to run it through 1 or 2 extra times just to get the cut to go through, because that adhesive sheet will be adding a further layer for it to cut. So I've just adhered those 2 down, and actually let's put the poinsettia on some foam pads just to give it a little bit of dimension. I could have added some glitter to the flower as well, just to add a little bit more festivity to the look. Just give your I've added some wet glue here primarily because I know I'm sticking it onto a glittery surface, so it will just need something kind of with the grab of wet glue to cling to that kind of covering. And let's put Noel in the other corner here, the opposite element of the wreath. Wet glue, and just give it a second or 2 longer than you might normally to grab. So this is a really quick and simple card. The fun bit to it is adding all those kind of glitters to your die cut, and you can imagine you could die cut a number of things with that double-sided adhesive sheet on, and then just add different colour combinations of glitter to really kind of create a bit of an eye-catching focal point on your card. And there we have it, a very simple card using our pretty poinsettias, twiggy wreath, festive words, and the Paper Smell White Magic paper pad. I hope you enjoyed that, and I will be back again very soon with some more ideas for your card making. Thanks for watching, and hopefully you can like and share this video, and certainly if you haven't done so already, I'd be really pleased if you subscribe to the channel and tune in for further projects that I've got coming your way. Thanks again. Bye for now.